My name is John Cornicello, and I welcome you to my series of live interactive photo conversations. You can check out the schedule at cornicello.com/conversations for dates and times of upcoming shows. My guest today is Teresa Meyer. Teresa is a fine art photographer based in Seattle, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about her and her project. So please welcome Teresa Meyer.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Yeah, I really appreciate these discussions. It's nice to have a group of people to talk to every week.
I know that's how I got into this was because of the pandemic and not having people around.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a big difference.
But there's a lot of your work involves self-portraits.
Yes, most of it. I do photograph. I do photograph other people for various reasons. I've done documentary projects and uh, portrait projects. I did a whole series on brewers, craft brewers in the Oregon area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's not really what I promote myself to do.
Sure.
So yeah, I'll share all of the kind of self-portrait stuff today. Um, I don't know. Do we just want to start out by looking at some work and
Yes,
then?
yes.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Okay, I put together a document too of just kind of like some behind the scenes stuff if people are interested
Perfect.
in seeing that. Okay, so let's just start with my website. Okay, everyone can see that.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I think I'm going to start with we'll just start with what's on the homepage here. So I started when we went into lockdown last March. Um, I started this series, and it was, I think a lot of us, I was reading the news constantly and just kind of really stunned at what was going on, and a lot of the headlines were talking about just different effects on the environment and animals of people sort of, having to kind of stop living their daily lives. Air was cleaner, pollution was down. And then I found that there was a lot of like fake stories. There was one where it was like dolphins returned to the Venice Canal. And a lot of them just weren't true. So I started the headlines just kind of set my imagination on fire. And I just started making these images. And really it was, for me, self-portraiture, it's very cathartic. So it's just kind of a way for me to deal with anxiety or just sort of whatever's going on with me at the time. So that was basically what I was doing with this series. It was just me processing what was happening. And, luckily, basically, things that are going on that are struggles or things that are difficult, I get to make beautiful pictures, as opposed to, like, I don't know, drinking too much or something. So I'm grateful for that. Okay, so this first one is the circus. It was one of the last ones in the series. It was, like we just kind of needed to have some fun and something a little lighter. So I just kind of created this whole circus theme around my kitty cat, Towley. And I made this ring of fire hoop that I very much wanted to make sure it looked like it was made at home and, not really a ring of fire, to just really kind of give the idea of this backyard circus. And if you guys, jump in at any time with questions or whatnot.
Yeah, I was going to ask you one thing. Do you make a library of parts, like the other animals in the lake, or do you go out and shoot specifically for a project?
Both. So I have a library that I've been building for, like over 10 years. So the camera goes with me everywhere. I'm constantly shooting flowers, animals, and it goes in the library. So sometimes I'm able to go there and get things, or, if I'm building something specific, then, I will go out and get it. But, skies, just
Yeah, yep, I
all
do the
different.
same.
Yeah,
Do you also
yeah.
utilize clip art, or what do you do in that regard?
Clip art.
Or other people's work, that you can license.
No, I don't do that. I shoot everything myself. I will sometimes, there's a, so I used to do animation, and there was a site, CG Textures, where you could go and get textures for free. And so sometimes I still will go there for textures. Yeah. So this was the one I made in response to the dolphins returning to Venice Canal. That wasn't actually true. There was a story about tigers getting COVID. I'd actually been working on a different project about butterflies, certain ones that are going extinct. The monarchs here are endangered. And so I just sort of put it into this series too.
Do these rooms exist, or are they made too?
So I have a shot. This is my house. So yes, they exist. And I have a shot of what my house really looks like because, well, this is my house. This is not how it looks normally. Yeah, exactly. I actually live in my house, and it does not look like this. So, you know, it becomes a stage.
Yeah, Jason's pointing out the lamp that's behind you and the lamp in this photo.
Yeah, I was pretty excited. I mean, so that's what happens. You know, I sit in the house, I watch the light move across the walls, and then I rearrange things to make it all work. So it's, you know, just like when you go out and scout a location outside, you know, you look around, you wait for the light, and then you set it up. Okay, so that's that series. So this next series I started, it was my thesis project in my graduate studies. I'm still working on it. I don't think it'll ever be done. And it, you know, it's changed, it's evolved. I kind of feel like maybe some parts are splitting off into other projects. So this is kind of where it's at now.
Question.
Yeah, Michael.
Why does a project ever have to be done?
I don't know that they ever do, but sometimes, you know, the last one, that's done. I mean, we might go back into, I mean, I guess we kind of are in lockdown now. I mean, but I might make a couple more, but ultimately, that project's done.
There's sort of like the never-ending story.
Right.
Okay.
They can be.
It looks like
the image of the table right there.
Yeah.
With the antlers.
With the antlers. I was looking at the food. Approximately, how long does it take you to put something like that together in your mind?
Oh, in my mind. So, you know, it's interesting.
Or do you do it as you go?
A little bit of both. So, and I'll have some sketches that I can show you later. So I'll get ideas and I'll make very simple sketches just so that I don't forget the idea. And ultimately, like, I just start working. And so a lot of times I end up having to reshoot things because, you know, I shoot something, I get it in the computer and the parts aren't working together.
It's the wrong angle.
Like I want them to, so then exactly. So it's kind of a back and forth. But for me, the best way to really make progress is to just start.
Now, are these all separate images, or did this really exist when you got finished?
So the table, so this one was a lot of work. The table was set. So everything that's on the table, you know, this was in a dining room. But I set the table and then I did a focus stacking to get, because I was right up close and I wanted that first person perspective, but I still wanted the whole table in focus. So just with the equipment that I have, I had to do focus stacking. So in addition to it being multiple shots to make a panorama, each shot was also focus stacked. So the table itself is, I don't know how many images, over 100. And then all the plants are individual images, and so are the animals. So this one took a lot of time.
So do you store, you store or have all these different tchotchkes?
The stuff on the
props.
table?
Yes.
So some, yes. This, I was at someone's house and she had this amazing tea set collection, and I was just like, oh my gosh, can I set these up? I just went to the pastry shop and got some donuts and, set up the table. So it was like a dream come true, walking in there and just seeing this hutch with all these teapots. I was like, what? But yes, I do have, my collection of props is growing. I'm constantly making new ones, and then it's you have to figure out. I try to sort of make it stuff that I can live with and use, but some stuff.
Are you magically drawn to antique shops?
Yes, I love antique shops.
Paul, were you going to ask a question?
Oh, I was just going to make the comment that it looks like she likes Hopper.
Yes. I actually had never seen A Room by the Sea until a couple years ago. I was reading Robert Adams's latest book, The Art Can Help, and he's got a plate of it in the book. That was the first time I'd seen it.
And the picture with the scissors and the woman like this, is that Jan Saudek influence? A Czech influence?
I have looked at his work. It's been a long time, a long time. So possibly. I mean, stuff gets in there.
If you remember from a long time ago, that means that he made an impression on you.
Yeah, he did. Actually, my background is in the wet lab. I started with just black and white film, printing silver gelatins. And I think that's when I first found his work. I went to the library and I was just like,
yeah, there's a couple of Czech photographers, maybe Kodelka and Saudek. They stand out.
That down.
Is that one image you take off on the owl and the pussycat? After being out of their boat, they come and somehow have a crop circle on a farm?
Which one is that?
Oh, so this one here. This was it actually started with, so I made this photograph in 2016, and then I started the pen and ink illustrations of them after. So this kind of started that whole idea.
After they're exiting the Pedigree boat?
Okay, and actually, I did not know about that poem. Isn't that hilarious? I was illustrating, so I was reading this book, The Shadow of the Wind, I think is what it's called. And there was just a phrase in there, the owl took the pussycat out to sea. And it stuck with me. I thought it was hilarious. And so I started these illustrations. And then a friend came over and she saw them and she was like, oh, you're illustrating that poem. And I was like, what poem? She was like, oh, I thought you just took out the pea green boat. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
So she read it to me and I was like, I don't want to see any imagery.
Cool. Very cool.
So I started playing with animation this last year.
Is that you with the snakes?
Those
are your snakes?
I had a dream, actually, a really vivid, bizarre dream that I ate a bunch of snakes and they were in my belly. And then I had to go into surgery to get them removed.
Do they taste like chicken?
So this was actually kind of a hard image for me to make. The snakes really freaked me out. But I was like, all right, I guess I got to make this, get this out of my head.
For me, it's
spiders. And these, spiders, yeah.
Spiders, yeah.
These are definitely heading in a different direction. But like I said, it's kind of what I'm working on, and we'll see where it
And I
goes.
see a little Renee Magritte in here now too.
Yes.
Is this your partner that's in these photos with you? Cool.
Yes. Yep. He's very accommodating. Like, hey, I need you to do this. I'm like, all right, whatever.
So how long have you been in Seattle?
We have been here a little
Okay,
over a year.
originally from Oregon?
So,
Okay.
yes. Yep. This series I started for fun, just a kind of a creative outlet for me, just a creative take on different professions. So it's just kind of something for me to play around with.
I notice each of these galleries has quite different navigation. Is that a specific reason for that?
You know, what do you like? 'Cause I
Yeah, I don't
can't
know.
figure it
Yeah.
out. People
I
seem
kind of
to,
like
they
these big ones
want,
where it's a full screen image of each one.
yeah. And then some people are like, oh no, I want to be able to
Doing it
see
once.
all of them at once. And yeah, so I'm like, all right, well, maybe I'll just do a little bit of both.
Teresa, these are beautiful. Your
Oh, thank you.
compositing skills just blow me away. So
Thank you.
did you said you were in animation, and I certainly kind of see some of that in your work as well. Do you think that that was sort of a good spin-off? And obviously, if you dreamt this dream about your snakes, you've got a good creative imagination. So, and on the and I know you do some sketching, but does a lot of it sort of come together as you're doing it?
Yes, very much so. I mean, sometimes, you know, I'll have an idea and it'll all come together perfectly, you know, it's super easy, but very rarely does that happen. You know, when I started doing self-portraiture, I do it for a few reasons. I discovered my depth perception is actually quite bad. So when I'm looking through the camera and then when I actually get into the frame, I realize things are not where I thought they were. So actually being in the frame helps me to compose the image. It helps me get things where they should be, or helps me to understand where things are in space. So then it just kind of becomes this back and forth between being out in front of the camera and then getting the instant feedback from the digital. So that's also why I use
So
digital now.
this one in the
It's
red
just
dress from above, is the camera up on way up on a tripod or on a ladder or something, or?
no, I'm just standing above her. So I have a pretty
Okay.
wide angle lens. I may have
Teresa,
35.
can you go back to the woman by the window, an opened window in a room?
So this was actually my first compositing, my first foray into Photoshop was this series. This is when I was in the media arts and animation program, and I saw Eric Almus's work in communication arts, and I was like, ooh, I want to make something like that. So I made this series. So I was working on a laptop with trackpad doing this. Is this one you wanted, Michael?
Unmute.
Sure.
Does this image have anything to do with the next one?
The feet in the window?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was so while it was my first foray into Photoshop, it was also me beginning to tell a story. So these are old family photos in the images. So my childhood was fairly chaotic. And that's a lot of my work does reference back to, you know, my personal history, my childhood, and sort of me figuring out how that's affecting me now. So when I started this series, it was sort of my first dive into that. So I'd kind of been combing through this old box of family photos and, just trying to work all these things out. And then I love fairy tales, and that was sort of part of it too. That was sort of my escape as a child. Books were always safe. So it was sort of incorporating that into the imagery and part of the story. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So are you using a Wacom tablet now or a mouse?
Yes, a Wacom. I don't know how I did this with the trackpad.
So I think you were in Tangled Feathers.
So obviously these are not all self-portraits, just various women in my life. So it's still, a bit of memoir.
I like that wild splayed hair. There's a couple of images like that.
This one was tricky, so I actually did this with a tripod, laid down underneath it.
So are each of these images supposedly representing something about you, your life, your...
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of where the inspiration comes from. Me thinking back on past experiences, or and that's why I was so drawn to surrealism and compositing. It was sort of this way to really describe internal feelings and thoughts. Putting things together to create another meaning.
Yeah, this series operation.
And
Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say this
you go.
series reminds me of Francesca Woodman. Are you familiar with her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So she was when I first started photography, a teacher was like, "Oh, you got to look at Francesca Woodman." So that was kind of this is kind of just me getting going, leading up to the composite work, and I still do work like this.
Yeah, I was in Scotland last year, and I believe it was the Edinburgh Art Museum, and they just happened to have a show of Francesca Woodman and what's his name? Robert Mapplethorpe self-portraits. So I lucked out for that one. And then at another museum there, I got to see some of Magritte's originals.
Good trip.
Yeah, it was.
You don't mind me asking.
No.
Go back to the shot of the hatchet. What? I'm old. Physically, not mentally. But explain something about this picture.
So like I said, growing up, pretty chaotic childhood, a bit of violence, and these portraits were just sort of my way of looking at that, thinking about it, processing it, and I guess letting it go. So they're a little darker. So it's just these sort of thoughts and memories, and what do you do with it, right?
In my mind, this is a photo that is perfect to let the viewer come to their own thoughts as to what it is, what it means. I like how it is open-ended in terms of what its message may be.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So a lot of the imagery, the narrative is a bit ambiguous, and when people will ask me, "Oh, what does it mean?" Everyone always wants to know what it means. But if I listen to people talk it out themselves, they know what it means. They understand it on a level, whether they know or not that they understand it, they do.
Almost
So
like
it's
a
always
Rorschach kind of a thing.
Like a Rorschach test.
and
Yeah.
and it's really quite lovely. People, I mean, I've been told incredibly personal stories about people's lives after they've looked at my imagery. So it's, it really does get to people on a deep level, and there's a connection, they're willing to share their own experiences. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, Jeff Shuey's asking if you're familiar with Dwayne Michaels and his more recent foray into
Yes.
video work.
I just watched, so he had that talk
Last week
a
from
few weeks
Princeton.
ago, and and I had not, so that was my first time seeing that video. It was pretty amazing.
And Jim Bracher's saying it reaches out of the frame in so many ways I've been taught never to do, and it's very compelling and challenging. And I think that was referring back to the hatchet one.
Yeah.
Also very cool.
So the prints are really big, which unfortunately, I've only been able to exhibit them a few
You print them
times,
yourself?
but it is very different. I have. When they get this big, I tend to let other people do it.
How big is
But
this?
I do like printing it. So this is 48 by 72 is
Nice.
what they are at full size. It's, I've gone back and forth because it's really just not the same experience seeing them on a computer screen. But how else am I going to show them? I don't know.
And are those magnets holding them up?
Yep. Yeah. Once they're framed, shipping becomes just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, the framing itself is probably pretty ridiculous in price, but
yeah, it is.
Is that
Yeah, once you get
anything?
what was that, Ian?
Is that covered with anything, or is that just the bare paper?
just the bare paper. So yeah, it's kind of, I mean, honestly, even the magnets are expensive. And then you kind of run the risk of the magnets damaging the paper. So the whole thing is just, it's tricky.
Yeah, it looked like some of your images
knowing
might have
what
been
to do.
dry mounted.
Yeah. So I experimented doing that myself for a while, and then I had Pushdot do this one. And they do a great job.
Are they in?
It was too stressful.
And are they in Oregon?
Yes, he's in Portland. Great printer. If you ever are looking for one.
Who was that?
Lincoln Miller at Pushdot Studios. He's in Portland.
I noticed the sign on the window says Rentals Gallery. Is
Yeah.
space?
So this is the Portland Art Museum's Rentals Sales Gallery. So they have this gallery that if you're a member of the Portland Art Museum, you can rent the pieces. You don't have to buy them. So a lot of corporate offices will, they'll rent them for 3 to 6 months at a time and then change them out, or I'm not exactly entirely sure who else rents them. A lot of times when people rent them, they do end up buying them. So it's kind of an interesting setup.
So you have some pieces in the museum or in their shop?
I do. They've been, just with the last year, I just have one piece there right now. it's been a little tricky with, drop off and pick up and all that. So yeah, so just one, because I'm not even sure if they're not open. Just by
Yeah,
appointment.
people who are new here, you feel free to unmute and ask questions or type them into the chat. Be part of the conversation.
Let's see. So
I've got a question, if I may.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you find that you've got photos that, or some of your work is, maybe you could classify it into two different sections. One is for teasing the mind, and the other makes a better saleable product?
Yeah, that's kind of that's what I've been trying to figure out. The self-portraits and the composites, I have not found a place for them in the market. I have not found, aside from selling prints, which is great when it happens, but it does not happen regularly.
Why do you say that?
But other than that, what do you mean?
Why do you say that you haven't found a market for them yet? Is that what you said?
That's what I said. I've approached advertising agencies, book publishers. Why? Well, people have told me these are the responses I've gotten. They say it's interesting, which I'm not quite sure what that means, or they will not forget it. So I guess that's good. It's just not what they're looking for right now. It's not quite the right fit. I mean, as far as I've talked with other people in the industry, and there's, yeah, fantasy, this kind of work, it's just, it is hard to find someone in the market that wants to use it. So I've been told that it's, too much me.
So
Sorry,
which pieces? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask, do you know, or have you thought about maybe who your ideal customer would be? Like if you were to imagine maybe what they would look like, or what their taste in music would be, or what films they'd like to watch. Have you ever sort of thought about what your ideal customer, what they might be and what their interests might be? Might help you find them?
Yeah.
A lot of money.
Yeah,
a lot of money.
And unfortunately, I tend to, I want to work with animals. I want to work with someone that's doing something with the environment. And they don't tend to have a lot of money. I saw this great campaign that Patagonia did with a fine art photographer a few years back. There was a guy that was doing some documentary work up in Alaska, I believe. And their whole catalog was just these beautiful fine art prints. So something like that would be just amazing.
Yeah, because I was talking to you before about Wes Anderson. We were talking about Wes Anderson, and because I think your color tones are gorgeous, and I can see that those pastely tones in a lot of Wes's more recent films. I could see maybe someone who liked that sort of Wes Anderson, like the Grand Budapest Hotel or something like that. If they enjoyed the sort of the pastel visuals of those films, maybe they'd be interested in your work too.
Yeah, and I do love film. So, if people have told me like, oh, it's just a matter of time. You just have to find the right client. Okay, well, if you meet them, send them my way.
How do you promote yourself? How do you get stuff out there?
A lot of emails, phone calls. I do actually still send out physical mailers. So I get postcards, mailing people.
What about online? Are you doing Flickr or Instagram? Any of those?
We do Instagram. And I do have a Facebook. I just kind of let Instagram post to Facebook, and that's sort of the extent. It's tough trying to, I don't want to get too sucked into social media. So it's trying to balance the time. I actually did just put a lot of content on Instagram, some behind the scenes videos and stuff.
Yeah, I guess video is
So
where
yeah, I
things
do
are
that,
going.
and
Even video composites
yeah,
of still
it's
images.
yep. I was told Behance is a good place to go, so I might. I don't have a profile there yet, but I might work on that.
I see on your website under.
Because I don't know.
What was that, Ian?
What's that?
Sorry. I see on your website under resources, you have one that says hosting your own exhibition. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. I made that post many, many years ago. So it was before I was exhibiting regularly, and essentially just trying to learn about the exhibition process and everything that you sort of need to know before you start exhibiting with galleries. So, you know, I did coffee shops for a while and just kind of figured out my, you know, how I wanted the work to be presented, what I wanted it to look like once it was up on the wall. So it was, you know, while I was in school, sort of working through that whole process before I began exhibiting with galleries. So I made that post, I guess, for other students sort of looking to go the same route, or not even students, just people looking to get into exhibiting.
How's business? How are sales?
How's business? Poor. They're really bad.
Okay.
I was going to say you're taking
yeah,
over
not
the
great.
Women's Photo Alliance Instagram, I think. Are you for 3 days?
Yeah, I did it the last 3 days. So actually, it just ended today.
And what's that about? What's the Women's Photo Alliance about?
So I think they're primarily in New York. I found them on Facebook. They have a Facebook group, and essentially it's people that will want to sort of support female photographers, balance out the gender gap in the industry, and you know, it's just a place to go for resources as a female photographer. And I've, you know, or people oftentimes, you know, are looking for recommendations or need help on assignment or just different things like that. So they also have an Instagram, and to help promote people, they allow people to take over their Instagram account for 3 days at a time. So it's just an opportunity to reach a broader audience.
So behind you on the wall, it looks
Sounds
like
fun.
some drafting equipment.
My rulers. I like to be very organized.
Okay.
Everything has its place.
Do you use them in your work, or are they props, or?
So I do illustrating, but actually,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I feel like I use rulers all the time. I don't know why. They're always handy for something. I build a lot of props.
Okay.
Actually, so let's see. I do have some behind the scenes.
Yeah, if you want to share again,
shots.
please.
Yeah. Oops.
Start the share again.
I build a lot of stuff. Props and things.
There we
so
go.
this, let's go full screen. So you know, this is the house. This is my house. I live in it. There's books everywhere. There's stuff. There's blankets. There's cats. So yeah, you know, constantly moving furniture around, clearing out rooms, doing different stuff. Luckily, my partner does not mind. He's like, yeah, just whatever. Do what you gotta do. So this is my work table.
That's where you are right now.
That's where I am right now.
Yes.
So this is not where I do the composite work, but so like this maze I built, I definitely used a ruler on that. So I build different props that I then photograph, and then I do my illustration and stuff here at the drafting table. I do a lot of woodworking, which came about because I could not afford framing, so I learned to do it myself. And then I really love it, so it expanded into other projects.
Jim Bratcher says it's cool that you have a maze under your desk.
Yeah.
Topiary.
It was super fun to make. I have not.
Makes
I
me think of The
photographed
Shining.
it. Yeah, I know. I love creepy stuff. I photographed it, but I haven't yet made a composite with it. So it's just kind of there waiting.
We'll look
for
forward
me.
to seeing what you come up with.
Yeah, me too. So this is my computer. I have a few screens, my Wacom. The computer's a beast. It was custom built by my partner. He set it up specifically
is
for
that a
Photoshop.
Cintiq?
Yes, that's a Cintiq.
How do you find working on the Cintiq, working directly on the image?
I actually often toggle it back to the bigger screen. That screen's a little too small for me.
Yeah,
so,
I've never tried it. So I was just curious.
I got used to working the other way because I had an older model. This pen, it's more responsive. So the pen is nicer than the older model. But I often don't work directly on the screen because maybe if I had the bigger one, I would, but. I have lots of desks. I like to move. I'm like the cats. I like to move around the house. Watercolors, illustrations. So this is, the pan. So this is how I'm getting, because I have an older camera, I do this so I can make the giant prints. Does this make sense to everybody?
Yeah. So you stitch it, you stitch them together, panoramic.
Exactly.
So it looks like you're in Lightroom there.
Yep. So I used to, Photoshop's gotten better at stitching them together. And I've gotten better at photographing them. I used to get these crazy fisheye things that I would then have to kind of work out to get into a rectangle format. A piece I'm working on that I can't quite figure out how to get myself in the frame.
Boy, that image on the upper right, that really is very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
The Siamese fish in the bowl.
Yeah, that's Sir Goldstein. So I sketch them. So these are my highly detailed sketches. I write notes, things that I think I want. So for this, this was the wallpaper in my childhood home. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I ended up just recreating it with, I photographed dried flowers and then made brushes out of them and then just created a pattern and repeated it.
Wow.
And then distressed it in places to make it look old. So this is
My bridge.
Yes, Muybridge and Magritte. So I painted the horse. The horse is not real.
Wow.
And I'm working on painting the whole series. I'm not sure if it will work, but I wanted to try to animate the horse. So I thought if I painted the whole galloping series, perhaps I could, sort of stop motion like. We'll see.
So you're painting a photograph?
What's that?
I'm sorry. You're painting on a photograph?
So I painted the horse and then I photographed the horse and brought him in to the composite.
Oh, wow.
And then to get myself on the horse, this is my horse. Then I used the shop vac to blow the dress. And so that's me playing around, trying to get the dress to blow right. Just kind of some screenshots of me working through an image.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So a lot of times, so I found that when I'm doing these composites, it's best to photograph the set empty so that if once I get in there, I want to move things around, I can. So, I get, the great thing about Photoshop is that it's super easy to just test things, play around. If I get an idea, I try it. It doesn't matter if it's good or not. I can delete it. So I do experiment quite a bit. So that's kind of what's happening.
The scissors seem to
here.
make it in a lot.
Yeah, I was obsessed with the scissors for a while.
For me, I love the sound of a nice set of scissors.
Right? Oh, that would be good for an animation. Getting
Yeah.
the scissor sound in there. Yeah. I had wanted to get these.
On the
What's that?
windows.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're
Keep
breaking up a little
interrupting.
bit.
On the windows then, Bill?
Yeah.
On the windows, do you delete the pixels and then put what you want in there?
So it's just a mask. So I tend not to delete anything just in case I will want to change it. So I use a lot of masking.
Aren't these all different layers?
Oops. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, what do you mean by not having a Wikipedia page?
Just that it's something that I'm dealing with as well as you, John. If you're a substantial or important artist, you tend to have Wikipedia pages. I looked up Maggie Taylor because I wanted to ask about Maggie Taylor, and of course she has a Wikipedia page. So it's just, if somebody does a search on you, it's useful or interesting to have a Wikipedia page, not just your website.
Yeah. I don't have one, as you say. I know someone has to start it for you. Wikipedia doesn't really like it if you create your own page.
You're actually not allowed to do that.
What's that?
You're not allowed to create your own page.
So do they tolerate somebody else making them for you en masse? I mean, I've got time.
Yeah, maybe we can start something within our group here to start building each other up that way.
Okay.
Nice.
Fun.
That was the setup to shoot that. I try to keep it as simple as possible.
Black foam core, our friend.
It's actually the back of some painting.
No.
I have to gesso the back, and so I was like, oh, I'll just gesso them with black gesso.
Okay.
And now they're also backdrops. I put together the music's very dramatic, but it's just screenshots of a composite coming together.
Wow.
Okay.
Hey, David.
That's it.
Where can I get those mushrooms you got?
Hi. You got to come to the West Coast.
Hey, I'd love to comment that a couple of, well, maybe several weeks ago, I was a guest with John, and that's where I met Teresa. And when after the episode, I went and looked at your work, and I'm just saying this for the benefit of all here. I instantly resonated with your brain and where your mind goes, and that subtle darkness that comes through some of the images. That's quite beautiful, but it might allude to a darker memory, and I'm all about that myself. But what I wanted to say, I was listening a little bit earlier. We were talking about resources you might have in order to get your work seen, and you and I talked a bit about this offline. But for the benefit of others, I have sometimes spent hours and hours at a place like Barnes and Noble's when it was, or Elliott Bay Bookstore here, and just looked at the book covers of the current books on those big piles that they have on the tables, and just said, that's a book designer I want to get to know, and just kind of go through that whole process of seeing things that attract you and then finding out, well, who's commissioning that work. And that's what got me the first few years of my work when I moved to Seattle.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing with magazines. Your work is very psychological, and it's interesting that the fine art market is unsure how to sell that, but they should be the best people at selling that. You know, they should have a client base that is interested in intelligence and reaching in deeper than just, oh, that's a decorative picture. Although your images are beautiful.
Thank you.
And I think that they just don't often understand how a person will interpret that. So outside of the fine art market, there's lots and lots of places that would love to do an article on you. And that's the best way of getting seen by art directors and people who are in the commercial end of things. Archive is a really good one to hit, and there's just so many. But you know, we can talk about that at another time. But I just think that a story about your work is as valid as the work itself, and all of your work implies that there's a story behind it. It's a very personal story, but that's the juicy stuff that if I had $10,000 and I wanted to buy some art, I would choose art that has an interesting story behind it than just something that looks incredible to me.
Great.
So yeah, I think getting published and getting interviewed is a great way of doing it.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And at no investment. That's the beautiful thing. It's free.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
David, I have a question for you about that. Why does any art have to have a pedigree behind it?
What do you mean by pedigree?
Well, you want to know the history of what? The piece or the artist?
I think another way of asking that is, do you have to be known for the piece to be good?
No, not
Yeah,
at all.
yeah, I didn't think it was that.
Okay.
I think I know what you're saying, Michael. I mean, I think my short answer is I'm always interested in the story behind the piece, but if you look at this person's bio, you're only going to see what they're presenting, and it's usually something that is considered to be, you know, out there for the public. But the real stories in the art, I mean, I can tell a lot about Teresa's life just by looking at her work, and that draws me towards an artist when I can see something in their work, even if it's straight photography, just landscape.
But isn't looking at anybody's work your own particular interpretation of what you think that photographer is trying to express?
Well, I think you're right about that in some ways, but I think if a person's really honest in creating their work from their own mind or their own heart, you're going to see who they are, because they're going to use symbolism. They're going to use certain repeating patterns or objects. In Teresa's work, there's scissors cutting a string between two people. I mean, that means something to me. It means something different than if there was just space between the people. That would be just two people in space. But if there's something connecting them that's being cut, that has a whole different meaning. And whether it's the same meaning, if I take something from it that Teresa didn't mean, then
what do you think the snakes meant?
What's that? The snakes? I don't go there. To me, it's a symbol. I look at Medusa. You know, when I see a pile of snakes, I think of Medusa. If they're up here, if they're down in the belly, I think of turmoil, or I mean, unless you have a serious affection for snakes and you want a whole pile of them in your arms, to me, it signals danger, turmoil. I use a lot of symbolism in my work that is symbolic of my own meanings. If I have a key, then that key is about unlocking a secret, or the key signifies a secret. If the key goes into a heart that has a keyhole in it, then that's unlocking love or locking away love. So we get to do whatever we want. We get to impose our own meanings, but I think it's wonderful to meet an artist whose work continually reveals who she is. And that to me is a very professional and attractive feature in a fine artist, when you see something in a person's work. If you know the work of Richard Tushman, who does some really gorgeous photographs of reenacting the Jewish ghettos in Poland and Eastern Europe. But before that and outside of that, he does work that's very personal and about his own life. So it's just something I'm attracted to. I mean, I would love, if I could ever resurrect one dead artist and say, I want to meet you and know what you're about, it would be Rene Magritte. It would not be Dali. It would be Rene, because his work didn't allude that much to who he was on a superficial level, but the meanings and the deeper stuff was there. And
I just wonder what I wonder about Picasso.
We know a lot about Picasso. Anyway, I don't want to steal this, this time from Teresa. So I just want to kind of flip back. But
just one quick question, David. What was the name of the artist that does the ghetto?
The title, Richard Tushman, Tuschman.
It's really beautiful work.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, you're in for a real treat. The Hopper stuff is just beautiful. And the
as a novice here, I'd like to add or dovetail on David. I think that part of, if someone's going to invest a great deal of money in any art, fine art, and your work is beautiful, Teresa. But back to his point, I think it's one thing to have something on that you've invested a good amount of money. Doesn't matter. We all work hard for our dollar, but when you put it on your walls and someone comes in and is like, well, that's interesting. Why did you buy that? There's value in being able to stand there with your friend or family or whoever is looking at it and go, oh, you need to understand, or let me tell you a little bit about this particular artist. And then they're able to share the deeper story or the meaning either behind the creation of that particular piece or what makes that artist interesting to them. And that provides, I think, a greater value and connectivity to why they would invest in a particular piece.
Why can't the piece of art just exist on its own merits?
But
without having to delve into the psychoanalytical atmosphere of why the artist created the piece.
Michael, for some people that might be enough. That's okay. But art is often thought provoking, and I think there's value.
I'm not saying it's not, but
a story behind it. If it could be shared, and if the artist is willing to be open enough to reveal it, then put it out there.
That's what is known as marketing.
Right.
That's what is known as marketing, and a piece, any piece. I don't care if it's a carving. All right. Any piece should be able to stand on its own, and you either like it or you don't like it.
I agree.
But if you have to psychoanalyze why an artist carved that piece,
Michael, I think you're reading too much into it.
I'm not.
No, the underlying concept or principle is that the artist is bigger than just their art. That they have a story, they have a backstory, and part of that is myth, and part of it is marketing and positioning. Clearly, if you have an interesting story to tell and your work is really interesting, that actually aids in the marketing and positioning and branding of the artist. I hate to it's marketing, positioning, and branding. And when you're in the fine art market, you have dealers that are dealers trying to sell work to collectors. And the more interesting that the dealer can make you sound to the collector, the more likely they will be to buy it. So part of it is a mythology or a
but to use one of your terms, it's all bullshit.
No, that's the wrong way to look at it. It's not bullshit. It is actually relevant. It's just more than what it is.
Isn't that bullshit?
Michael, it's kind of like the idea of buy-in. You either have buy-in to an image or an idea or a concept, or you don't have buy-in. And then if you don't buy into it, then to use your terms, it's bullshit.
Well, I can wait a minute. No, but the reality is I can buy into a piece of art because I like it.
Exactly.
I can't buy into the bullshit that someone is trying to tell me that they did it because I don't know, they were never breastfed.
Okay, well, there's a difference between collectible art and decorative art. And if you're buying something as a collector, you're actually looking forward to the artist becoming more famous, more valuable, and more desirable, which is
Alive or
why
dead?
collectors buy collectible art.
Alive or dead, Jeff?
Huh?
Alive or
a
dead?
live artist or a dead artist?
Oh, alive as well as dead. I mean, the
There are
older
more,
the artist,
there are more famous dead artists out there than there are live artists that are famous.
well, perhaps, but you know, I
It's
think what
irrelevant.
Teresa is doing the right thing. I do think that having spent a career in advertising photography, chasing commercial advertising work as a fine artist will drive you fucking nuts, because you almost really need somebody out there, a sales agent or rep, that is, you know, looking under rocks for clients that might find, you know, her work to be the perfect expression. You know, it's but that is a tough market, and it's tougher now than it was 20 years ago when I was in it.
One of the things I have noticed is that Teresa doesn't seem to have a lot of titles to go with her images. She's allowing her images to sort of stand on their own. One of the things I'm curious about is how long does it take you, or what's your maximum that you would spend on one of your composites? I mean, the one with all the tea sets on the table, you said took a long time. I specifically heard that part. That took a long time. What's a long time, and would you be able to go more than a day, a week? How long does it take you to, if you've got a vision and you want to put it out there? How much work would you allow it to have?
So I've gotten quicker as I've got done more work. I mean, that piece actually took me years, just to get all the pieces I need, but it wasn't because it was, you know, personally I had a lot going on, and so I was able to shoot the pieces when I could, and then work on it when I could, because, you know, full-time jobs and different, you know, family, different commitments. If I were to just work on a piece like that, you know, I could probably do it in a week. And it depends, you know, at the time for me, I was trying something new. I wasn't sure how creating a focus stacked panorama would work out. You know, so it depends on if I'm really kind of stretching myself and trying something new. I may have to reshoot. I may have to start. I mean, a lot of times I have to start over from the beginning. Luckily, I'm tenacious, and it's not so much of a problem just to start again. So it depends. If it's something I know I can do, I've done before, it's going to go quicker. If it's something I've never tried before and I just want to see if I can, which I often do, or I want to see if my equipment can do it. I'm excellent at finding the edges of things. How I want to know how far I can push something. It's I do it. That's how I am.
Are you a perfectionist?
No.
Okay.
Ish. I
Full of shit.
In recovery.
If you are that neat and clean in your studio, you have to be a perfectionist. So
that's just a matter.
Stop bullshitting a bullshitter.
Yeah,
that's just a matter of me being able to find things.
But some people like to leave some rough edges in their composite images, and other people like everything to be perfect. I was just wondering which side you might fall into.
Oh, I absolutely obsess over my masks. I will spend many hours getting the mask.
I don't think that somebody that does composite work can leave any rough edges in that work. And the one that I'm thinking about is Richard Horowitz.
Horowitz.
Yeah, I mean, there's just too much going on to leave any bit of roughness to their imagery. Someone like me, or someone like John, or even Ian, as neat as he looks, could leave a lot of rough edges floating around an image and get away with it.
Yeah, no, I'm responsible for everything in the frame, and so nothing was left.
But Teresa, do you rely on others to sell your work, or do you sell your work yourself?
Right now, it's just me. I mean, the gallery obviously is doing their part, but for the most part, it's me.
If you had to put a percentage on it, what percentage does a gallery sell?
I mean, in the last 3 years, they've sold 3 pieces. So there's.
And how many have you sold?
None. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I've gotten work for myself. Typically, it's doing retouching for other photographers. So I'm helping them with their commercial clients or something like that.
How far out of your home base do you think you go?
What do you mean, as far as approaching other clients?
Yes.
Or being known?
Oh, I have no problem approaching people. I do it all the time. I'm just not very successful.
So do you think that people in Japan see your work?
So I've been exhibited throughout Europe. I don't know that I've ever made it. I've sought out opportunities, I think, in Japan, but not successfully. My work does seem to do well in Europe. So Italy, the UK, I think like Paris. But so exhibiting work it has yet to actually lead to paid work.
So Jim is asking if you tried to work with any Seattle galleries. There are some that do show whimsical, fantastic work. And maybe, Jim, maybe you can list some of those for her.
Yeah. Also, Jim, I saw you post you found Tushman's work, and I wanted to say that if you look a little deeper, he actually makes he makes these little tiny dioramas and photographs them, and then he composites the people into them. There's this great shot of his cat in one of the dioramas. So they're just like these little structures that he builds. It's really amazing.
Nothing to do.
Wait a minute, Teresa, are you friendly with Jim?
Jim?
Bracher?
Oh, I mean, that I just in these, as friendly as I am with you, Michael.
Oh, no, you don't want to go there. You don't want to. But if you can stay in contact with Jim after this, call him up, and I want you to discuss something with him.
Are you friendly with Jim?
Yes, I am now.
Okay.
No. Very friendly. But I want you to discuss something with Jim that is going to happen, and I think that you would be just perfect for you would be a perfect victim for what we're all going to do.
Okay, I'm excited.
So this has nothing to do with today's conversation, except that
that's
David,
why I said it.
Except that David mentioned hearts and keys. I just want to show you 2 images that I've been working on over the last week or so. Here.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
What's your secret?
God.
So anyway,
that's great.
Apropos of nothing, just showing my stuff.
Wow. I think there's a lot that's been said about letting the art speak for itself, and you were talking about that too, Michael. And yet I always want to know more about what the artist's vision is on a piece. And some artists are comfortable giving that away, and some of them don't really want to because they want the art to stand on its own. But one of the reasons I love to buy books from independent artists is to learn more about who they are, because they're not always going to put that on their art statement in front of each gallery on their website, where I would love to read it myself. But if I went into a gallery, I read the art statement first. And so if I go to a website gallery of a series of pieces, I'm hoping to learn something about the purpose of the work or the intention, or just the experience or the poem or whatever it was that led up to that series. So how do you feel about that, Teresa? Would you feel like revealing that, or is that more of a, let's see what someone feels about my work?
No, it is something that I'm constantly working on. Actually trying to talk more openly about the work, because I've been reading a ton of memoirs, because it's not often the stories I'm telling are not mine alone. I just want to be respectful of kind of other people's roles in my images and not kind of telling someone else's story. So I struggled with, how best to do that, while also respecting other people. So it's something I'm working on. But I agree. I mean, it is often what people want to hear. They want to know a little bit more of my background, or a little bit more of what's behind the image, a bit more of the story. A lot of people have said, I'd love to hear a little bit of narration on your website, with the imagery. So it's stuff that I know I need to do, and it's just a matter of how best to get it out there, or really just maybe letting go of the fear of putting it out there.
So a question to David, and when you go to a museum or gallery, the placards that go along with the image, do you look at those first or afterwards, or at all?
You're talking to me, right?
Yeah.
I always read the art statement first, but there are times when the gallery's been so crowded that I end up just in front of the work, and it takes me a while to get to the statement and weave my way through. And I love that experience, because then you get to read your own interpretation of the work and find out. So it works both ways for me.
Okay.
If the work is really unusual and intriguing, then I'm at a loss sometimes as to what I'm looking at until I read something about the work. It works both ways. But someone's work who reveals a lot of inner psychology, I think we're all curious people, and I'm curious about psychology. It's what drives my own work. So yeah, I want to know.
I wonder what you would say about a Pollock work.
Who?
Jackson Pollock.
I never really enjoyed looking at his work when I first learned of it, because it was part of a movement that I didn't relate to creatively. But when I started reading about him in art school, as it were, and then saw the movie that came out sometime, I think it was in the 80s, it was fascinating. It was just fascinating to learn about him.
At that point, did you like his work?
I
didn't like it before.
Well, the word "like" is a different word than I would use. I appreciate it.
How would you describe it?
I just say it's an aesthetic that it doesn't appeal to me, but I appreciate the work for the work's sake, and I appreciate why he made it and how he made it. I like the history of the work, but I'm not attracted. If I had oodles of money, I would not be buying Jackson Pollock. There's a million other things I would choose, so it's just a personal affinity, right? Like, I see what's on the back of your wall, and I don't know if it's all your work, but if it's not, then there's reasons you put up other people's work. It's just what we do. We're attracted to what we're attracted to.
So I'll tell you a quick
half of it is my work.
Hold on, Nula. I'll tell you a quick funny story. I went into a gallery a day after I had this eye treatment. Couldn't see out of one eye. My glasses were really messed up, and I couldn't see out of the other eye. So my wife and I go in this gallery, and I'm walking around looking at pieces, and I'm taking pictures with my iPhone of the artist statement, because I can't read it. I figure I'll look at it later. And every time I take a picture, the woman comes over to me and says, "Can I help you?" And I'd walk over, take another picture. "Can I help you?" And finally, my wife said to me, "You're not supposed to take pictures." And it turned out on the artist statement, it said no photography, but I couldn't read it.
So let's go back to Teresa here. So Teresa, you have any other statements you want to make, or things you want to show us, or?
Gosh, I mean, I did make some videos this week that are about, that look at my kind of a look into my process. I'm happy to share them if you guys want to see them.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
So let's see, I have a couple.
ending there.
It's wonderful. Teresa, did you produce, direct, envision that video all yourself?
I did. I just made that this week.
Really?
So that's my cousin, actually, Brent. He is just an amazing like inventor, creator. So he's got like all these tools at his house, and anytime I have an idea, we work really great together. And basically, like if I'm not quite sure how to do it, I'm like, okay, hey, I want to make this. And he's like, okay, like here's the materials we could use. And a lot of times, we build off of each other's ideas and really have a great time working together. So as I've gotten more ambitious and I want to make bigger things, those frames at the end there, are probably around 6 feet long. So, creating frames that big come with stability issues and things like that. So he's been a great like mentor and
Nice. And
yeah.
you did do all the edits and all the cuts and everything on there.
Yeah.
And
Actually, I
Jeff-
did a few. They're all on Instagram.
Oh, cool. Jeff is asking if you're using Windows.
So I have, yes, I have both.
Because you
I
already
have
said you're on a
Windows.
custom-made box.
Yeah. I also have a Mac, but I pretty much, I found the limits of my Mac. So I got this custom PC that can handle a bigger workload. So for the videos, I was just using a free software, HitFilm Express. It's, pretty standard, pretty basic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very talented. I'm worried you're going to be tainted by the rest of us.
Yeah, be really careful about who you listen to.
Well said. Teresa,
Okay.
is that going to be something that you have on your website as a behind that work, or what's your intention of how do you use that?
So I've gone back and forth. I mean, I think I will put them on my website. It always becomes like an organization issue and what to put where and where will people find it and see it.
Well, you said it's on Instagram now?
Yes, they're all on Instagram, the IGTV right now, and that's it. So you can see them all there. But yeah, I'll probably put them on my website soon.
Do you have it on Facebook?
I think so. So when I post Instagram, I let Instagram post to Facebook.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it sent me some like warnings, like it didn't post right to Facebook, but I went and looked and it looked like it was there. So I'm not quite
Well,
sure.
if you post it to YouTube, for instance, you can link it on Facebook, but I would share that in a heartbeat. And I think everyone here would too. And just like, let's get that out there. That's really a great, there's something macabre and beautiful about that, but I love the music because it kind of sounds like that Tim Burton sort of, playful macabre.
Yeah,
really great.
tinkering.
Is it under the Teresa Meyer Creative Instagram account, or do you have multiple accounts?
The Theresa Meyer Creative. I do have another one that's more like personal, but they're
Okay,
all
and
on
Jeff's saying it's also under behind the scenes on your website?
there are a couple videos there. So I have
That one in
started.
particular, the book, at least it started out the same as the previous one that you showed.
Yeah, I videoed it before, but I had never gotten in all the kind of the process of us making it. So I finally got that put together. Thanks.
Well,
yeah, I did a
thank you.
few. I did one of the butterfly, kind of putting that whole thing together, and the circus, starring towels.
And you mentioned that you dream of being a character in a Tim Burton film in your description on Instagram.
Yeah, it's my big dream.
Well, very cool. I want to thank you for joining us today.
Yeah,
This
thanks,
has been
John.
really a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
don't know if anyone else has any final questions or comments they want to make. Coming up on Monday is just
Thank
going to be
you.
an open discussion. I don't have anyone scheduled to be a guest, so we can continue some of these discussions that we started today that got a little off topic. So join us again on Monday if you want to just say what's on your mind.
How do we find that, John? That link?
Are you subscribed to my list?
Yes.
Yeah, you'll get a notice on either Sunday night or Monday morning with the link.
Okay, good. I'll have to make a a rule to find your emails, put them on top, because I've got like 64 students right now, and it's like the incoming is ridiculous.
Are you teaching online, or you have an in-person
Teaching
class?
online exclusively, but you know how that goes. It's
Yeah.
John, will Monday be a free for all?
Yep. I've got my hand on the mute button.
I'm stocking vodka.
Okay. Very cool. Well, thank you, Teresa. This has been really great. So any last comment you want to make to us?
No, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing these. I really appreciate it, and it's really great getting to know everyone better. And yeah.
Cool.